The first time I learned my family had given away my building, I was standing beneath a chandelier made from 200 hand-blown glass leaves, holding a paper cup of sparkling water, while 80 people applauded my generosity. I had not been generous. I had not even been asked. My Aunt Celeste stood on the small stage at the Riverlight Foundation's annual dinner, one hand pressed dramatically to her heart. Behind her, a projector displayed a photograph of Bellwether Workshop, the narrow brick building my grandfather had left to me. Across the photograph, in elegant gold letters, were the words, "Future Home of Vale House Events." My cousin Adrian rose from his table and waved as if he had just won an election. Celeste smiled directly at me. And none of this would be possible without Mara's extraordinary gift. She has agreed to transfer Bellwether to Adrian so our family legacy can serve the whole city. Every face turned toward me. The applause grew louder. On the screen, another slide appeared. Renovation begins October 1st. That was 19 days away. Adrian lifted his champagne glass. To family. I set down my cup before I crushed it. Then I walked toward the stage, took the microphone from my aunt's hand, and looked at the photograph of the building where my grandfather had taught me how to sharpen a carpenter's pencil. "There has been a misunderstanding," I said. "Bellwether Workshop is not being transferred." The room went so quiet that I could hear the projector fan. Celeste's smile stayed in place, but her fingers closed around my wrist. "Mara," she whispered, "this is not the moment." "You made it the moment." Adrian laughed from the front table. Not a nervous laugh, an irritated one. "The paperwork is already with the lender." That sentence changed everything. If he had said the invitations were printed, I would have assumed this was another family pressure campaign. If he had said the contractor was ready, I would have thought he was bluffing. But paperwork with a lender meant someone had represented my property as part of a real financial transaction. I looked at him. What paperwork? For the first time that evening, Adrian stopped smiling. Celeste reached for the microphone, but I kept it. "What paperwork, Adrian?" He glanced at his mother. That tiny movement told me they had rehearsed the celebration, the speech, and probably my expected surrender. They had not rehearsed a question. Celeste leaned closer and spoke through her teeth. "We will discuss this at home." "No," I said. "You will not discuss my property anywhere without me again." I placed the microphone on the podium and left while my own photograph remained on the screen beneath the word donor. I was 43 that night, old enough to recognize manipulation and still, apparently, young enough to be shocked when it wore my family's face. I restore old buildings for a living, not grand museums or celebrity mansions. I work on the structures most people pass without seeing. Neighborhood libraries, brick schools, corner theaters, union halls with water stains above the stage. My job is to determine what can be saved, what must be replaced, and what history has been hidden beneath cheaper layers. It is precise work. You document everything before you touch it. In my personal life, I had followed the opposite rule. I trusted first and inspected only after something broke. My parents died in a highway accident when I was 13. Celeste, my mother's older sister, took me into her home in Milwaukee. She already had Adrian, who was 11, and suddenly she had a grieving teenager who woke from nightmares and refused to unpack her suitcase. She did not have to take me. I never forgot that. Gratitude became the foundation of our relationship, and like any foundation poured too quickly, it developed cracks I learned to decorate instead of repair. Celeste reminded me, usually with a soft voice and perfect timing, that family had rescued me. When Adrian wrecked his first car, I helped pay the insurance increase. When he abandoned college to become a concert promoter, I designed his first office for free. When his music venture failed and he reinvented himself as a luxury event producer, I introduced him to 2 hotel managers and pretended not to notice that he called my contacts his network. None of those favors seemed large alone. Together, they taught him that my no was only the beginning of a longer conversation. My grandfather Elias saw the pattern before I did. He was my mother and Celeste's father, a cabinet maker with square hands, quiet eyes, and no patience for emotional theater. Bellwether Workshop had been his business for 41 years. The ground floor held his machines and benches. The second floor contained a small apartment with sloped ceilings, radiators that clanged in winter, and windows facing the river. When I was a child, he let me sort brass screws into glass jars. After my parents died, the workshop became the only place where nobody asked me to be grateful, brave, or easy. He simply handed me a broom and let grief occupy the room without explaining itself. 3 years before the foundation dinner, Elias died at 87. His will divided his savings equally between Celeste and me. Adrian received a separate education trust that he could use for professional training. Bellwether Workshop came to me alone. At the reading, Celeste blinked twice and said, "Of course, Mara understands buildings." Adrian said nothing until the parking lot. Then he put his sunglasses on and asked, "You're not actually going to keep that old box, are you?" I told him I was. The workshop was not glamorous. It needed repointing, electrical work, a new rear stair, and at least one heroic conversation with the plumbing. But it was structurally sound, fully paid for, and located in a district that had become valuable almost overnight. Developers were buying warehouses along the river and turning them into restaurants, apartments, and wedding venues with exposed brick and invented histories. Within 6 months, I received 3 offers. The highest was $1.2 million. I declined all of them. My plan was to restore the ground floor as a small teaching studio for apprentices who could not afford architecture school. The apartment upstairs would become my office. I had drawings, a phased budget, and approval to pursue a preservation grant. Adrian had a different plan. Vale House Events, his newest company, had strong photographs and weak finances. He staged beautiful dinners in rented spaces, but he spent money as if every booking were guaranteed and treated deposits as if they were profit. Vendors complained privately about late payments. He always had an explanation: a difficult client, a delayed bank transfer, an investor arriving next quarter. At Sunday dinners, he described Bellwether as the perfect flagship venue. "We keep it in the family," he would say. "You handle the historic details, I handle revenue, everybody wins." I always answered the same way. "It is not becoming an event venue." Celeste would smooth her napkin and say, "Ideas evolve." Mine did not. 2 months before the dinner, Celeste asked me for a digital copy of Grandfather's deed. She said the foundation was preparing a memorial display about local craftspeople. I sent her a scanned copy and several old photographs. A week later, Adrian asked for my preliminary floor plans because he wanted to show a contractor what good restoration drawings look like. I sent him a low-resolution PDF with a large draft watermark. I remember hesitating before both emails. Then I remembered 13-year-old me arriving at Celeste's house with one suitcase, and I pressed send. After I left the foundation dinner, I drove straight to Bellwether. Rain had begun, a thin silver mist that made the streetlights blur. I unlocked the side door and stepped into the familiar smell of old wood, mineral oil, and cold brick. The benches were covered for the renovation I had planned to begin in winter. Grandfather's blue shop coat still hung from a peg near the office. I turned on every light. Nothing appeared disturbed, but I no longer trusted appearances. At the office desk, I opened my laptop and searched the city planning portal. Bellwether's address produced a new application filed 12 days earlier. Change of use from artisan workshop to assembly venue. The applicant was Vale House Events. The property owner authorization page displayed my name. Below it was a signature that resembled mine from a distance and became ridiculous when enlarged. The first letter was too round. The final stroke curved upward, something my signature had never done. Next to it, a checked box stated that I authorized Adrian Vale to act on my behalf. Attached to the application was my floor plan. The draft watermark had been removed. Walls I intended to preserve were marked for demolition. The rear courtyard was labeled Cocktail Terrace. Grandfather's machine room was labeled Catering Preparation. I felt anger, but beneath it was the colder sensation I knew from structural inspections, the moment a harmless crack reveals movement in the entire building. I downloaded every file, saved the submission receipt, and took screenshots showing the date and time. Then I called Priya Shah, a land use attorney I had worked with on 2 theater restorations. She answered on the 4th ring. "If this is about work, I officially dislike you." "Someone filed a property authorization with my signature?" Her voice changed immediately. "Do not call them yet. Send me everything. Then check the county recorder and your credit." "My credit?" "You heard the phrase paperwork with the lender. Believe it." At 12:18 in the morning, we found no recorded transfer of ownership. The deed was still in my name. There was, however, a recently submitted notice requesting expedited review of an occupancy plan. It listed a construction estimate of $680,000 and identified North Meridian Credit Union as the proposed lender. My credit report showed a hard inquiry from North Meridian 3 weeks earlier. I had never applied to them for anything. Priya told me to freeze my credit, submit an identity dispute, and avoid making accusations until we knew exactly what had been presented. "Can they take the building?" I asked. "Not with a bad imitation of your signature and no valid closing, but someone may be trying to use the expectation of your consent to obtain financing. We need the documents." Expectation of my consent. That was the most accurate description of my role in the family I had ever heard. The next morning, Celeste sent a message at 6:42. "You embarrassed Adrian in front of donors. Call me when you are prepared to apologize." At 6:47, Adrian sent one of his own. "You made this look criminal. It is a preliminary package. Mom said you were on board." I read that sentence 5 times. Mom said you were on board, not I thought you were. Not we misunderstood. He had named the person who gave him permission she did not possess. I replied with one line. "All future communication about Bellwether must be in writing." Then I contacted the planning department and formally withdrew any authorization connected to my property. Priya sent a preservation notice to Adrian, Celeste, Vale House Events, and North Meridian, instructing them not to alter or destroy related documents. By noon, the family version of events had already begun circulating. My uncle called to say Celeste was devastated that I had changed my mind publicly. A cousin in Madison asked why I was sabotaging Adrian after promising him a partnership. Someone posted a photograph from the dinner with a caption about jealousy destroying legacies. Celeste understood something I had never admitted. I hated public conflict. She had raised me to believe privacy was proof of loyalty. Problems stayed inside the family, which conveniently meant the person most willing to create a scene controlled the story outside it. This time, I did not defend myself online. I built a file. The city provided the original electronic submission, including account details. The application had been uploaded through Vale House's business portal. The owner authorization page had been added from an address associated with Celeste's home internet service. That did not prove who created it, but it narrowed the room. My email provider showed that the deed and floor plan messages had been forwarded from Celeste to Adrian minutes after I sent them. Adrian's assistant, Nia Alvarez, contacted me after receiving the preservation notice. She sounded frightened. "I want my own attorney before I sign anything," she said. "But there is something you should know. I was told you had approved the venue. I built the lender presentation from files Adrian gave me." "Did you ever see me approve it?" "No. I asked for confirmation because the plan had a watermark. He sent back a clean version and told me his mother handled the owner's signature." "Do you still have that message?" "Yes." Priya arranged for Nia to preserve her emails and speak directly with the credit union's investigator. 3 days later, North Meridian sent Priya the authorization I had supposedly signed for a commercial real estate application. It was not the same page submitted to the city. This version contained my full legal name, my home address, an estimated net worth, and a statement that Bellwether would secure a $420,000 line of credit. The signature was electronic. The verification certificate claimed it had been completed from my email address. For 10 terrible minutes, I wondered whether someone had entered my account. Then I checked the address carefully. My real address ended in mara.br.uxdesign.com. The certificate used mara.br.uxdesign.com. One missing letter. Someone had registered a lookalike domain and created an address that most people would never question. The profile photograph was copied from my firm's website. The application included a fabricated consulting income statement and a scan of my driver's license that I had given Celeste 2 years earlier when she added me as an emergency contact during surgery. The betrayal was no longer an aggressive family assumption. It was an organized attempt to manufacture me. North Meridian suspended the application and opened a fraud review. Priya advised me to file a police report documenting suspected identity misuse. I did. I stated only what the records showed and refused to guess which person had performed each act. That restraint mattered because Adrian was about to overreach. He announced online that Vale House would still open at Bellwether in spring. He claimed a minor ownership disagreement was being resolved and began selling discounted founding memberships to prospective clients. Couples paid deposits for weddings in a building he did not own and was not authorized to occupy. When 2 local reporters asked me for comment, I gave them the same short statement. Bellwether Workshop is not for sale or lease. I have not authorized Vale House Events to use it. The relevant applications are under review. No insults. No family history. No speculation. Facts created more pressure than anger ever could. Adrian called from a blocked number that evening. "You are destroying my company," he said. I put the call on speaker while Priya listened from her office line. "Your company sold access to my property." "Because Mom told me grandfather intended it for the family. Grandfather wrote a will." "A technicality." "Ownership is not a technicality." He exhaled sharply. "Do you know what happens if the credit line fails? I have vendor balances, payroll, deposits already spent on the launch." There it was. The motive stripped of speeches about legacy. He had used new client deposits to cover old obligations. The Bellwether venue was supposed to attract more bookings, and the credit line was supposed to fill the gap before anyone noticed. My building was not his dream. It was the next piece of money. "Refund the deposits," I said. "With what?" "That is a question you should have asked before taking them." His voice softened. "Mara, please. If you sign a 6-month lease, we can stabilize. You can put any conditions you want in it." For a moment, I heard the boy who had left cereal outside my bedroom when I was 13 because he did not know how to talk to someone grieving. That memory hurt more than his anger. "Did you create the false email address?" I asked. Silence. Then he said, "You were always going to say no." I ended the call. The midpoint of the story came from someone I had barely considered. Nia's preserved files included a voice memo Celeste had sent Adrian 6 weeks before the dinner. It was not dramatic. That made it worse. "Mara freezes when she feels cornered," Celeste said in the recording. "Do the public announcement after the foundation has thanked her. She will not contradict me in a room full of people. Once everyone believes it, she will sign rather than make us look dishonest." There was no misunderstanding. My aunt had designed the room around my weakness. Priya watched my face as I listened. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I think I have spent 30 years confusing shelter with ownership. Celeste had given me a home when I had none. Somewhere along the way, she decided that rescue purchased permanent authority over my choices. I had helped maintain that belief because challenging it felt ungrateful. But gratitude is not a deed. It does not transfer ownership of a life. The city scheduled a public hearing to determine whether the change of use application should be dismissed and whether the altered preservation drawings required referral for enforcement. Normally, Priya could have handled it with written filings. I chose to attend because Vale House continued advertising the venue, and the public record needed a clear owner statement. Celeste asked to meet 2 days before the hearing. We met at a bakery near Lake Park, the place she used to take Adrian and me after dental appointments. She arrived in a cream coat, perfectly composed, carrying the leather folder she used for foundation meetings. "This has become grotesque," she said before sitting down. "I agree." "Then withdraw the complaint and give Adrian a short lease. Not apologize. Not explain. Solve." "Did you create the owner authorization?" I asked. She looked toward the window. "I signed your name on a preliminary planning page because timing mattered. It was never meant to harm you." "And the lender application?" "Adrian handled financing. You sent him my license. Your address is connected to the false authorization. Your voice is on a message explaining how to corner me in public." Her face lost color, but her posture did not change. "Mia had no right to share private business communications." "That is your concern?" She folded her hands. "My concern is that one mistake should not erase everything I did for you." The sentence landed exactly where she intended, on the frightened teenager still living somewhere inside me. I let it hurt. Then I answered, as the adult she had not prepared for. "Taking me in was an act of love. I will always honor it. It was not a lifetime contract giving you permission to impersonate me." Her eyes filled. "If Vale House collapses, Adrian loses everything. If I cooperate with false documents, I risk my building, my credit, my professional license, and every employee who depends on my judgment. You have always recovered." There it was again. My competence used as proof that damage to me did not count. I should not have to recover from my family. She opened the folder. Inside was a lease, already marked with yellow tabs. "Sign this," she said. 6 months. We tell everyone the filing confusion has been resolved. Adrian repays you after the spring season. I will personally guarantee the rent." I did not touch it. "Can you personally guarantee the client deposits he has already spent?" Her silence answered me. I stood, left cash for my coffee, and walked out without the lease. The hearing room was on the second floor of the municipal building, with fluorescent lights, gray carpet, and rows of chairs that made every human crisis look administrative. Adrian arrived with an attorney. Celeste sat behind him. Several vendors attended, along with couples who had paid deposits and 2 members of the Riverlight Foundation Board. Adrian had spent weeks calling this a private family disagreement. The hearing made it a record. The planning officer began with the ownership documents. The county recorder confirmed I held sole title. Priya submitted my original deed, grandfather's will, the email containing the watermarked plans, and the altered version filed by Vale House. A city technology specialist explained that the authorization came through Vale House's account and that its metadata did not match any file created by me. Then Naya testified remotely. Her voice shook at first. She described the lender presentation, Adrian's instruction to remove the watermark, and Celeste's statement that the owner's signature was handled. She authenticated the messages and the voice memo. Celeste stared straight ahead while her own recorded voice filled the room. Mara freezes when she feels cornered. For 30 years, that had been true. Not anymore. Adrian's attorney argued that the documents were part of an incomplete negotiation and that no loan had funded. The planning officer asked why Vale House had accepted deposits for events at the property. Adrian leaned toward the microphone. "We acted in good faith based on family assurances." "From the owner?" He looked at me. "From her guardian," he said. I was 43 years old. A murmur passed through the room. The officer removed her glasses. "Ms. Brooks's aunt has no legal authority over Ms. Brooks or this property." That simple sentence broke the spell more completely than any speech I could have given. When it was my turn, I did not describe childhood debts or family dinners. I stated that I had never offered bellwether for lease, never authorized a loan, never approved demolition, and never allowed Vale House to sell bookings there. Then I announced something Adrian did not expect. I had completed my legitimate restoration financing that morning, using my own plans and my own identity. Bellwether would become the Elias Brooks Craft Studio, a non-profit apprenticeship space operated through a separate board. The City Preservation Office had agreed to recommend grant support once the false application was closed. The building was no longer merely something I refused to give Adrian, it had a future he could not occupy. The planning department dismissed Vale House's application, barred further filings by the company without verified owner consent, and referred the altered documents to the city attorney. North Meridian permanently declined the credit request and provided its records to investigators. The hearing officer ordered the public file corrected to show that I had objected as soon as I learned of the submission. Those were the immediate consequences. The larger ones arrived over the next several months. Vale House stopped taking new bookings. Adrian was required to provide an accounting of deposits. His attorney negotiated repayment agreements with clients and vendors while investigators reviewed the false email, identification documents, and financial application. I was not involved in charging decisions, and I did not pretend to know more than I did. What mattered to me was that the facts no longer depended on whether the family believed me. They existed outside us. The Riverlight Foundation removed Celeste from its finance committee after an internal review concluded that she had used the dinner to promote a private business deal without approval. She resigned from the board soon afterward. For weeks, relatives told me the consequences were excessive. I answered with one question: which consequence did I create? I did not file the false authorization. I did not build the fake email. I did not present my property as collateral. I did not sell weddings in a workshop I did not own. I stopped carrying actions back to the people who had chosen them. That was new for me. Adrian sold his car, closed his downtown office, and moved Vale House into formal dissolution. Some clients recovered money quickly, others entered the repayment process. Nia found a position with a hotel group, and I wrote her a letter confirming that she had cooperated once she discovered the truth. Celeste and I did not speak for 5 months. During that silence, Bellwether changed. We repaired the brick instead of covering it. We rebuilt the rear stair, upgraded the wiring, and saved the long maple workbench scarred by 4 decades of tools. I hired 3 paid apprentices for the first program: a former warehouse worker named Luis, a community college student named Tasha, and a single father named Ben, who had learned Finnish carpentry from online videos after his daughter went to sleep. On opening day, sunlight came through the tall east windows and stretched across the floorboards. Grandfather's glass jars of brass screws sat on a shelf above the bench. I kept his blue coat on the peg. Celeste arrived 10 minutes before the ceremony. She stood outside the open door, holding no folder, no flowers, and no prepared expression. She looked smaller without an audience. "I will leave if you want me to," she said. I considered it. Then I stepped into the doorway so we were neither inside together nor entirely apart. "Why are you here?" "To tell you something without asking for anything afterward." I waited. She looked past me at grandfather's bench. "I believed taking care of you made me the person who knew what was best for you. Then, when you stopped needing care, I kept the authority and called it love." It was not a perfect apology. It did not name every document or repair every lie. But it was the first sentence she had ever given me that cost her pride instead of costing me peace. "Adrian made his choices," she continued. "I helped him make worse ones because I could not bear to watch him fail, and I used your strength as permission." I felt tears rise, but I did not move aside. "I am not ready for things to be normal," I said. "They should not be. If we have a relationship, it will not include access to my finances, legal papers, business decisions, or professional contacts. You will not speak for me. You will not volunteer me. You will not use what you did for me as a vote you can cast forever." She nodded once. "I understand." Understanding will take time to prove. I know. I let her attend the ceremony from the back row. That was not forgiveness. It was not punishment either. It was a boundary with a door I controlled. A year later, the Elias Brooks Craft Studio completed its first community project, restoring the wooden doors of a neighborhood library that had been closed for renovation. Luis accepted a union apprenticeship. Tasha transferred into an architecture program with a scholarship. Ben began taking small restoration jobs of his own. Adrian pleaded to reduced financial and identity-related charges after repaying part of the missing client deposits through the sale of his remaining assets. The court imposed restitution, supervision, and community service requirements. Celeste was not charged in the lender matter, but the false planning authorization remained part of the city record, and her reputation never returned to the version she had managed so carefully. I did not celebrate either outcome. Justice did not feel like champagne or applause. It felt like hearing a key turn in a lock I had chosen. It felt like opening the workshop in the morning and knowing every signature connected to it was real. On the anniversary of the hearing, I found an old carpenter's pencil in the back of grandfather's desk. One side had been sharpened with his pocket knife. The other still carried faint tooth marks from the habit he denied having. I placed it beside the studio's sign-in book. For years, I believed gratitude required me to keep surrendering small pieces of my life. I thought saying no would rewrite the past and make me disloyal to the woman who had once given me a home. But love is not proven by how much control you can take from someone before they leave. And gratitude does not require an unsigned deed to your future. My family announced that I had donated Bellwether because they believed public pressure could turn a lie into consent. Instead, the lie became a record, the record became evidence, and the evidence returned every consequence to the people who created it. I did not win by humiliating them. I won by telling the truth in a room where they could no longer speak for me. That evening, after the apprentices had gone home, I switched off the machine room lights and stood in the doorway. The restored brick held the last gold of sunset. Grandfather's bench cast a long shadow across the floor, solid and level after all those years. For the first time, Bellwether did not feel like an inheritance I had to defend. It felt like a life I had finally signed for myself.